Hello and welcome to Grief Seeds, a podcast where you'll find insights, reframings, metaphors, and visualizations, all known as grief seeds, to help you cultivate growth and healing in your life after loss. My name is Shelby Forsythia. I'm an intuitive grief guide and author, and on this show, I'll share insights from my interactions with clients, wise words from fellow grievers, and personal stories from my own life, with the hope that they transform your grief as they have transformed mine. Because even when it doesn't feel like it, we are planting the seeds of growth in the midst of great pain and heartache. Your grief is welcome here. Hello, grief growers, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Grief Seeds. I have a question for you. Are you feeling stuck? This is such a common response to griefs of all kinds, and it's something that I talk about with clients on a really regular basis, to the point where we've come up with different names for it. I remember one client I spoke to who had lost her husband, and she talked about this thing she called frozen mode, where she would just sit in a chair in her living room for hours and hours, not doing much of anything, not really watching TV, not really doing a crossword, not really doing anything. And she had this visualization of this giant football player guy just smack dab on top of her, not letting her move. I think this posture for her felt oppressive and weighty and like something that was robbing her of energy that she remembered having in life before loss. I worked with another client once who was anticipating the loss of his mother, and he kept saying, my motivation is gone, my momentum is missing. And he felt as if there were these iron weights attached to his legs, as if he was standing at the bottom of a ladder, but he no longer had the ability to climb it. And he saw other people climbing ladders, and there was an immense frustration in that. Other people are moving. Other people have momentum. Where has mine gone? This notion of stuckness, this story of stuckness, is such a real feeling in the aftermath of loss, and especially if you're in westernized culture, especially if you're in the United States and other colonized capitalistic societies, there is such a measure of worth based on how fast we can move and how much we can produce. And so oftentimes, from very young ages, we are rewarded for being in motion. We're always asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? When you get farther than you are right now? What's coming next for you in your life? What's on your horizon? What's in your future? There seems to be a story of always wanting to know what's coming down the pipeline and to always want to be participating in the activity in that pipeline in the first place. And grief does this weird thing where it kind of takes us out of movement, as if we're cars up on cinder blocks that are temporarily out of commission. We lie on the couch, we lie in bed, we may run a few errands, we might leave the house every once in a while, but the movement, the speed, the energy with which we used to participate in life is gone. And oftentimes the story we tell ourselves is, I am stuck, I am motionless, I'm not going anywhere. I'm living Groundhog Day on repeat over and over and over again. And there is validity in this. It is valid after the life you have lived, after the intensity and the overwhelmingness of the losses that you faced. It's really normal for what you're sitting in right now to look like a whole lot of nothing, to look like feeling stuck, to look like being glued to the floor or to the couch or to one chair at the table. It's really, really, really normal that that's what your life looks like right now. Something I shared with another client recently who's also feeling stuck, this idea of Groundhog Day, is that there is so much happening internally. Our brains are trying so hard to make sense of our grief, and our hearts are learning so hard how to feel all of it, what to do with it, where do these emotions go, that our output levels, what we're used to producing, who we're used to being in the world, looks stuck, looks motionless, looks lazy sometimes. In reality, the amount of movement that is happening in grief, internally, your brain figuring out the story of your loss, trying its best to make sense of the past and to plan for the future simultaneously, and your heart reeling over and over and over again from grief triggers, from having to tell people the story, from sad scenes on TV, from all of these things that we get exposed to in the day-to-day that are triggers for our grief. We are doing a whole lot of work in life after loss. Something that might be really helpful to you right now as you try to figure out how you actually are in motion in life after loss is to keep a journal of things that are happening for you right now. This doesn't necessarily need to be a journal about what you do in a day, although it certainly can be a log of where you go, who you see, if any of those things are true for you. But it could also just be one sentence of, at a certain time of day, noon, 5 p.m., 7 in the morning, what is my dominant feeling right now? If I could put words to this experience, what would they be? Or if words aren't a thing that comes easily to you right now, which is very normal in grief, where is grief living in my body today? And as you continue to keep this journal of feelings, of locations of feelings, perhaps physical locations and people that you see during the days, you can see how over time these things shift. They move. Something is happening in your grief. There is momentum here. There is aliveness and vibrancy here, even in life after death, after loss. There is still breath. There is still motion. And because those things are still true, there is still possibility. It doesn't mean that anything large or expansive or jump-starty leaps and bounds is going to happen today or next week or even next month. But what this practice can do is start to jog you out of that story that I am stuck, there is no movement happening here, this is another kind of death, this is the end of me. Because yes, loss has brought you the end of you as you knew you in life before loss. And also in this season of stuckness, if you'd like to call it that, there is small but powerful, important movement happening into the self you are becoming in life after loss. Like seeds buried below the soil, there is movement within that shell, within that husk of a seed, that eventually draws on the energy of its surroundings, the nutrients that nourish it, to burst forth above the soil and bloom. And the same is true for you as well. I hope you will take this season of stuckness to rest, to observe yourself in this space with compassion, to heal, and to get to know grief at this very internal time, in this season of receiving, in this season of processing the massive, massive input of grief. I invite you to take a deep breath with me here and out. May you, my dear grief grower, however and wherever you're feeling stuck in your grief, if there's a giant football player sitting on you on the couch and stopping you from moving, if there are iron shackles bolting you to the ground, if you are looking at a ladder but can't seem to climb it, know that I see you and I love you in this agony of feeling stuck. You are not alone in this space, for we have all in some way had to endure, survive, learn how to cope inside of a season of stuckness. It's okay that the ways you move now are not the ways you moved in life before loss. It makes sense that after facing so much, after enduring so much, after absorbing so much, and right now having to carry so much, that your body says, pause. That your brain says, rest. And that your heart says, give me time to catch up to all that has happened. As you exist in stuckness, may you give yourself grace and mercy to be there. May you watch softly for the small things that show movement and motion in your days. May you become attuned to the intricacies, to the teeny tiny details of life after loss. May you notice how your posture changes, different songs that you like to listen to, different foods that taste good to you on different days in life with grief, and different spaces and places that grief is showing up in your body and as an emotion, an experience that you can put into words. Even here, even when it doesn't feel like it, even when you don't have it in you to convince yourself of this truth, there is movement happening. You are not doomed to be here just like this forever. You are just on world's slowest moving sidewalk, and the experience of grief and the sheer fact that you are continuing to live on this earth are carrying you forward right now. No more is required of you in this season of stuckness. May you observe, may you heal, may you rest, and may you grieve. Thank you so much for joining me today on Grief Seeds. So that's all for this episode of Grief Seeds. Thank you so much for listening today. You can find additional grief support at shelbyforsythia.com or by following me on social media at shelbyforsythia on Facebook and Instagram. If this podcast helped you in your life after loss, please leave a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And be sure to share Grief Seeds with a friend, because you never know what someone you love is going through. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for financially keeping this podcast on the air. If you'd like to support Grief Seeds on Patreon through a yearly or monthly pledge, you can do so at patreon.com/ShelbyForsythia. My Patreon supporters get access to behind-the-scenes content, including a once-a-month grief support call with me and 5 90-minute workshops with topics decided by grievers themselves. Again, that website is patreon.com/ShelbyForsythia. Music for Grief Seeds is performed by Addie Goldstein. As always, my dear grief growers, it was beautiful sharing this space and time with you today. I see you. I am so proud of you and the work that you're doing in the world. And I love you. Because even through grief, we are growing.